Shanghai GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show. So if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
Hello, welcome to another session of Google Payments Live. My name is Mihai Ionescu, and
hi guys, I'm Vishal. I'm a PM who works on the payments team, and today I'll be talking to you about one of the products that I work on.
And I'm Pong.
So Vishal, thank you for coming. Today's topic is the Google Merchant Center. So what is the Merchant Center?
So in our payment system, we have several users. A lot of our users sell products to other users. So what happens is that we have to design an experience for the merchants who are actually selling their products. This is where they would go to see what their orders look like and do any order management that they had to, among other things. It's basically the experience that we create for merchants transacting on our system.
Perfect. Who uses the Merchant Center? Who are the users?
Well, we have actually quite a few different sets of users who use the Merchant Center. In the product that we used to call Checkout, there are these merchants who are basically using Checkout as a way for users to pay for the goods that they just bought. So we have quite a large number of merchants who are using the system over there. And since we've started in-app payments, as you guys are really familiar with, all the developers who are selling virtual goods or goods using the in-apps payment API would go to the Merchant Center to see, look at their sales. And we also have like Android developers as another segment that would use our APIs and hence can go to the Merchant Center to view their orders.
So very useful for quite a few developers. Can you talk a little bit about the common use cases? How would someone take advantage of the functionality offered by the Merchant Center?
Sure, I would love to. So by far, the most common use case for merchants at the Merchant Center is order management. Merchants log in to get an idea of the sales that are going on our platform, to actually look at the individual orders, and to perform any order management functions such as charging the order in the case of physical goods, or canceling the order or refunding the order in case of a customer complaint. This is also where they would go and download reports. Say, for example, I wanted to look at how many orders I sold yesterday. I could go and get a report that would give me a list of all the orders that came through the system yesterday. I can also look out for exception use cases. So, for example, if one of my goods suddenly started getting a high chargeback rate, this is where I would go to try to diagnose the issue, understand if a particular country was causing the problem or whether I was seeing this across all countries. And other big use case is, of course, once you've sold products, you want to get paid for the products. So this is where you would go to link the account up to your bank account and look at the payments as we push them to your bank account and keep track of your earnings.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I have some questions for you too.
Sure.
I hear that you're working on a new iteration of the Merchant Center. The old one's been like, I don't know, started in 2006 to 2007, and it's about 5 years old. And we've been, I think we've been providing some feedback about some of the requests from developers, external developers. I was wondering if you could go through maybe a preview of what we have to look for in the future. Some of the specific pieces of feedback have been like sign up is really difficult, especially like entering in all of these different pieces of information, and sometimes it doesn't go through, and sometimes it's buggy. And if you're going to address that, that like if I'm a digital goods merchant, then I don't really need shipping addresses and that kind of stuff, and maybe a better UI.
Yeah.
Maybe a better tax page that's like more easily understandable and shows me the tax I need to pay for a specific state or a specific country. And a few other features. I mean, we've sent you the feedback. So
sure.
What do you have to show for? What's the future of the Merchant Center?
So I'd love to talk about that a little bit. Just as Pong was mentioning, the old Merchant Center is several years old now, which in Google years is like really old.
Dinosaurs.
In a way. So what we are working on right now is a brand new iteration of the Merchant Center. We've kind of incorporated a lot of the new UX stylings that Google is now, which you may have seen across some of our other products, and we're going to address specifically some of the feedback that Pong was mentioning. The idea is that this is going to be a product that we will make significant investments over the next coming quarters. And today what I'm showing you is just sort of the first step into improving that experience. We have a lot of different new merchant functionality coming out, and we're going to try to make this experience richer and better for our merchants. So without kind of spending a lot of time, let me sort of walk you through some of the things that you will see coming up very shortly, like in the next couple of weeks.
Cool, you're prepared. You have a little slide deck to show us.
The slide deck.
Hey, I'm a PM. It's what I do for a living, right? So as Pong was talking about, one of the key pieces of feedback that we've heard is basically the fact that the Merchant Center is basically this slightly old UI. One sec, it's kind of moving. Did I push it in play mode?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. So the old Merchant Center had this issue that it was basically built targeted towards physical goods. So when an in-apps merchant signed in, they would see all these sort of settings for shipping rates, did they ship the product, charging for this individual order, which basically made no sense in their context. So one of the things that we did was create two UIs, one for a digital merchant, and then we will then take this UI and add physical sales functionality into the UI. So today, if you're an in-apps developer and you come to this page, all you will see are your orders, and you will be able to see how much you're making for these orders. You won't have to worry about things like shipping or other things that probably didn't make sense in your context. However, the system will be intelligent enough in the future that if you were selling both digital and physical goods, it would appropriately show you the right options based on the order. So what I'm kind of showing you here is the new look of the UI. You can see that we've got the new UX styling. It's a lot cleaner, a lot more white space. We've also combined the order status and the fulfillment status into sort of one like icon, and we're using the lightbox, the kind of traffic signal analogy. So if you see a yellow, it means that order is sort of in pending state. A green is an order that has gone through successfully, and a red, and this is probably what the merchants will want to look out for, are orders that have issues. Basically, this would be something like the buyer's card got declined, or we had some issue with the order because of which we couldn't finish processing it. I just kind of want to show you a few more screens to give you a sense of what the UI looks like. You can see, it really looks a lot better than the old UI that we had that was kind of dated at this point. We've improved the search functionality quite significantly, actually. We've added a lot more indexes in the back end, and you can now search by a lot of different strings that you couldn't do earlier.
I think we should be pretty good at search running.
It's true. This is true. This is just kind of going down the UI list. So, it has a hover functionality. So if you went over an order, it would sort of highlight it. You could actually see what order you were looking at. You could click on it to get a drill down view where you would see further details such as what was the price in the buyer's currency in case that was a different currency than what the merchant specified, or what the different sort of transaction fees that were applied were, what their net revenue was, potentially an exchange rate, and sort of the sequence of events that made up the order.
Is there any additional information on this page that wasn't in the previous Merchant Center order review?
A few things have been added. So I think the way we display currencies have been improved a little bit, but in this version, at least, we're not gunning for massive improvements. We're just trying to make sure that we have parity, and then we will gradually improve the experience over the next couple of releases. So this is just what a cancel would look like if you try to cancel the order. Again, just to kind of give you guys a sense of the UI. It's really a much more beautiful, sort of easier flowing UI. So let's talk about some of the pain points that Pong was talking about.
Seems like you have the full list.
I have a few of them. Pong and Mihai have been yelling at me for a while, so I've been listening to this. Sign up was definitely one of the big things that I've heard a few complaints about. The form was really long. It was easy to make mistakes. There was a lot of extra information that we were asking for up front. So what we did in this release was just clean up this form a little bit. So we had to collect certain tax information about the merchants, which we were attempting to do up front. We've moved that towards the back And what happens is that during your sign up, we don't ask you for this information anymore. However, when you try to link a bank account and get dispersed, you may get prompted for this information depending on what our lawyers tell us. I will say that we still ask for some of the information about your business, and this is basically to make it easier for our customers to actually contact you in case there is an issue. We'll be looking into what further improvements we can do. I mean, our goal really is to make the sign up as simple as possible.
Finally.
Yeah.
This is great.
I see Pong's happy. Let's see if we can make him happier.
What about, so another thing is like, what about Sandbox? Because in Sandbox, nobody what transactions are processed, right? So
Right.
you can even simplify this further down. So if I'm just a merchant, I want to like see what's going on, I should just be able to like click, and then you should just give me credentials.
Right, just basically one-click credentials. So I've heard that feature request from you guys. We're actually working on it right now, and hopefully in a next session of GDL, I'll be happy to tell you guys about what we're doing to make the Sandbox implementation really brain-dead simple to sign up in.
Awesome.
Yeah. So kind of going down this list, another common complaint that I hear is that it's very easy to get sales tax wrong. Customers or merchants are often not aware how to put the sales tax widget in, and if any of you have tried putting sales tax in, you will know that it was a pretty painful wizard that we used to have up there. So what we're doing in this release is just giving you guys a really simple tax widget. We've broken it out into a bunch of different territories, and for each territory you can set the tax rate. Note that for US and Canada, we actually accept taxes at the province or the state level, whereas for most other countries, it's a flat rate for the country. So I'm just going to quickly give you a demo for what would happen if I wanted to update, say, the tax rate in Canada. So I'd go ahead and hit edit, and it would give me all the provinces in Canada. If I checked one of these boxes, I'd then get the ability to basically put in the tax rate for that particular province, and I'm done. So it's really simple. Go ahead.
Do we have, are we pulling from our database? Do we have like default tax rates that we're keeping, that we sync with like
Well,
regulators or tax people?
we actually don't have that in the backend right now,
Okay.
and it's almost sort of intentional because it's a bit of a legal issue with us keeping tax rates up to date,
Okay.
and also because taxes really depend on where the merchant does business and where they're registered.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for us to give them
Sure.
to actually try to figure that out automatically. But we are looking at in the future maybe connecting to a tax service, so maybe allowing them to provide basically just the ability to tell us where they're incorporated, and we'd figure out the taxes for them. I just wanted to point out, though, based on what you just said, for the US, the merchant has the option to select something that we call TDS. If he selects TDS, then basically we automatically calculate the tax rate for the state and then charge the taxes for them. However, that service is only available in the US right now.
What about, so another question that we often get is dealing with VAT and like how VAT is different from sales tax.
Right.
So how is VAT handled in this? Is it going to be, would you specify the price and when we add on the VAT amount, or do you specify total price and specify VAT, and then we just say this total price is inclusive of this amount of VAT?
So basically what they would do is give us the VAT rate for the country that they wanted to sell in,
Yeah.
and based on where the buyer was, we would either show them a tax inclusive price or a tax exclusive price automatically once we know where the buyer's location.
Got it.
But we would figure out the tax inclusive price based on the tax rate that the merchant gave us.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. This is, hopefully going to address some of the feedback that we've been getting. So this is a big one. You guys have probably run into this issue a few times. In our UI, you can export the list of orders. You basically give us 2 dates, and we give you all the orders that came out in that date. Till recently, we sort of had a backend limitation where we could only return about 5,000 rows from our database at a given time. This was sort of a limit that we had imposed based on some of the performance metrics of our system. I'm glad to report that in the new version of the Merchant Center, we will hopefully be able to give you as much data as you ask for. Of course, if you ask us for a few million rows, it might take a little while. But
That's a big merchant.
that's, and we have a few of those in our system. We do have a few of those in our system. But hopefully this will improve things significantly for you guys.
So no limit.
That's the plan.
Theoretically.
Yes.
Is this a regular order report? So like there were 2 order reports in the old checkout. Merchant Center. One of them was like a regular report, and the other one was the report with extra details, like billing address or shipping address and stuff like that. Do you know which report this one is pulling?
It does have fields for the billing address and the since it's digital, it won't have shipping, but it does have like fields for the billing address. But basically, those are returned only when the buyer allows it, and we're legally allowed to do so.
Okay.
So yeah, the API kind of takes care of that, and only in cases that we can actually share that information with the merchant do we actually return it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the new features that are coming in the Merchant Center. So one of the things that we've heard from our merchants is that they would like better analytics. They want to understand what's going on in their system, who they're selling to, and where they're selling. So in this first cut of the Merchant Center, I'm happy to announce that we will have some basic analytics baked into the product. This is just an idea of what we think we can present, and we will be adding a lot more functionality over the next few months to this page. I also just wanted to call out that we actually have one of my colleagues, Mark, works a lot on this page, and will probably be talking to you at some future session about all the details and all the information that we can offer. But just as a preview, what you're seeing over here is sort of your historical sales over time. You can select the time range that you want, and we'll give you some basic information such as how many buyers came through and bought goods from you, how many orders they placed, how many of these buyers came back more than once, what was sort of the volume of refunds and chargebacks that you're seeing on your system. And then where possible and legally allowed, we will try to display some demographic information to you. So examples might be what is sort of the age breakdown of the customers who are buying your goods, or are they male or are they female. Note that we don't always have this data because it depends on the user opting in and sharing this data with us, but where possible we want to give merchants more insight into what's going on the system.
You should totally tell me what I need to sell to make the most money. Right, like tell me the hot products they're selling, and
Yeah, just show them.
Yeah. And those are exactly some of the ideas that we're working on. I don't want to steal Mark's thunder though, so I will let him come and talk about all the goods that he's got.
I'm sure there will be more to
Yeah.
talk about.
what? So I think a few merchants have already integrated with analytics, and then can you go into how this differs from Google Analytics, or how do the systems coexist?
So I'll talk about that really quickly. Like I said, I don't want to steal Mark's thunder, or he's not going to be really happy
He's
with
not
me.
here, it's okay.
Well, but he is supposed to buy me a beer at some point today. So, and I want my beer. So just coming back to what Pong was asking though. Analytics is mostly based on sort of mapping the funnels, keeping track of users as they go through the purchase funnel, figuring out how many users came through, what the sort of drop-off rate was, what the paid serve rate was. Analytics really don't have insights into the orders themselves. The unique information we as the Checkouts or Google Wallet platform possess is we actually see the orders. We know where the users are coming from. We can track what currencies they're actually purchasing these goods in, how they're paying for them, basically information about the payment system itself. What we tried to focus on as we were building this analytics page was data that was unique to our system. So what you'll see coming from us over the next coming months is tighter integration with analytics so that you can track both the funnel as well as your individual orders. But in the Merchant Center itself, the focus that you'll see is towards the orders that are being placed in the system. Again, I'm going to let Mark come and talk a lot more in the future about the stuff that he's building. But
Yeah, we'll definitely have him on one of these days.
yeah. So a feature that we announced at Google I/O was subscriptions. And I just wanted to show you guys what you can do with subscriptions in the new Merchant Center. If you start selling subscriptions, which are basically recurring payments to users, you will see all your subscriptions orders marked with the subscription icon on the orders page. If you drill into them, you will see that the order details page has a similar icon. Now let's talk a little bit about what is the extra functionality that merchants have on the order details page. So in the old page, all you would do with an order is essentially refund or cancel it. Now when you come to subscriptions, you have a series of orders tied to a single subscription. Another common operation that you might want to perform is canceling the entire subscription. So if the order is in a subscription order and you chose to cancel it, you will be given an option of canceling that individual order or canceling the entire subscription. canceling an individual order is sort of like refunding the customer for maybe one period, be that a month, a week, or a year. Maybe because he had some problems with the subscription or the content did not refresh, or like as just a, loyal customer kind of thing. But if you wanted to ensure that the customer was not charged for the subscription in the future, then you would go ahead and cancel the subscription. Hopefully, like this comes across in the UI. These are one of the things that we'd like users to try out and give us feedback on. I just also wanted to call out that the Google cancellation policy is when you cancel a subscription, we don't automatically refund the unused portion of the subscription. We basically allow the customer to have access to that content till the period runs out, but we do not refresh, we do not charge that customer again. Any questions about this, guys?
So, it's much better because I remember that merchants had a lot of confusion trying to cancel subscriptions.
Yeah,
find the first order and all the orders and cancel them.
It was definitely something that I think was not very intuitive, and I'm sure this is a feature that I've heard a lot of requests for.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the merchants are looking forward to playing around with this.
Is there any way to view? I'm not sure if this is useful to merchants, but it's off the top of my head. Is there any way to view all of the orders in like a thread for a subscription?
So that's a great feature, Pong. We're actually going to be developing that. You should see that coming up in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
I actually didn't throw it up in these mocks because I was kind of focusing on the things that we'll be releasing in the next coming weeks. But this is a sort of a good opportunity to let merchants know that we've got a pretty large and aggressive roadmap for what we plan to do with the Merchant Center. We are trying to build a really sort of one-stop shop for the merchants to come in and track all their orders and track sort of all their exchanges with the Google Wallet at one spot.
Cool.
So I wanted to lastly talk a little bit about some of the feedback that we've heard around reconciling orders to the disbursements that merchants receive. So this is, what we're doing in this release is actually just the first step over there. We've basically improved the look and feel of the payouts page so that you can now get a sense for what your earnings were on a particular day and what your disbursements are like. But what we really need is a way to link an order to the payment. Yeah. So the way the Google payment system works is that we get a series of orders from the merchants. At some point in time, we raise an invoice, which basically tells us how much we owe the merchant, and then we use the information that the merchant gave us to actually pay them. What we're going to do is introduce a page that will allow you to link all the orders that went into a particular invoice, and we will also tell you how much we paid out against each invoice. Does that sound good?
Yeah,
that sounds perfect.
All right.
Very confusing.
All right. Yeah. So
it's much easier reconciliation.
So that's kind of everything that I just wanted to touch on today. Before I kind of hand this back to Pong and Mihai, though, we really need your help to test this new Merchant Center. We're going to launch this experience in the next couple of weeks, and we want merchants to sign up and play with it and tell us what they think about it. So if you think this is something you'd be interested in doing, email me or email us rather at this alias. It's mc-feedback@google.com. We monitor this alias. We'll respond to any questions that you send over here. And if you're interested in participating in our beta, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Just before I leave, a couple of caveats. So currently, the new experience will only work if you're an in-app merchant. If you're selling physical goods or you're selling Android apps, this experience will not be available to you for about another couple of months. And the other thing I would say is that if you're a customer who's been on our system for a while, you will not see your legacy disbursements in this payout format that I was just talking about. We will, however, link to a page where you can see what you got disbursed for in the past. So like a couple of caveats, but I believe a big step forward, and I'm really looking forward to what you guys have to say about this system.
So at a high level, the main benefits are like a really easy to view overview page, great subscription support, better order reports or like unlimited order reports, and
analytics.
Yeah, analytics. You can see
great
what
analytics. Yeah, I think as Pong was saying, it's we've really improved the user experience. I think users will find the UI to be fluid, a lot more intuitive, easier to find information. There's a lot of in-context help that will be available to you. There are tooltips that help explain what's going on. There are hovers so that you understand what the icons mean. We spent a lot of time thinking about how to make this UX more like desirable and usable for merchants. And then we've definitely addressed some of the feedback, specifically making the sign up a lot easier, giving merchants analytics so they have an insight into what they're selling, giving subscription support, which has been a pretty common ask from a lot of our merchants. And we'll also be doing some additional work around addressing some of the feedback that Pong was talking about. So
Yeah. So
quick question: what happens? You said this is only available for in-app merchants,
Right.
In the near future. What happens when a merchant sells both physical and digital goods?
Right. So that's a great question, Mihai. In the first launch, we won't be able to support those merchants on our new platform. However, like I said, this is just the way we've decided the roadmap should work in terms of because we have to go and work with each team to make sure that the new experience works for them. So every sort of week, we're trying to get more and more of those merchants onto our platform. And basically, in a couple of quarters, I expect everybody will be on this new experience.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Vishal. I hope everyone enjoyed the new preview of the Merchant Center.
Yeah.
And quick reminder, if you want to participate in beta testing the new Merchant Center, send us a message to mc-feedback@google.com and we'll respond to you and we'll tell you how you can test it. Great. So we have a few more minutes to answer some questions. You want to stick around for the questions?
Sure.
Thank you. So let's see. We have a few people who submitted questions on our moderator page. The first question is about payments support in different geographies. What is the timeline for opening up payments in other geographies, specifically France, India, other European countries? This is not, it's not clear if this refers to in-app payments or Android
or checkout.
But let's assume it refers to digital payments or in-app payments. France is supported on both Android and in-app payments. India, it's not supported on either. To give you a context, we offer in-app payment support in 31 countries on Android and 18 countries on digital goods payments for the web. We are adding new countries all the time. It is a laborious process, not from a technical point of view, that is the easy part, but we have to follow the legal requirements for money transfer in each one of those countries. So for some countries, it's taking longer than others, but we have been adding new countries on a very nice pace. Usually, new countries are added to Android, and then they shortly follow on in-app payments. So keep an eye on new announcements from us. We will be adding new countries. And I think the next couple of questions.
Vishal, do you have any more insight into expanding internationally?
No,
nothing?
unfortunately not.
Product manager, I thought you guys were supposed to know everything. Have the inside scoop.
Yeah, the next couple of questions are also asking about ETAs on launching payment support in new countries. And as I said, we'll keep you posted.
Rules and regulations.
Yeah. And then we have a question about, this is in-app payments for the web. Is there a way to remove the pop-up when the user first initiates an in-app payment transaction? So the pop-up you're seeing when you're first trying to make a payment is needed to log you in securely. So it's a security feature. If you're logged in, then you won't see the pop-up. We're looking at ways to minimize that impact and find a way to have you perform the transaction entirely within the page. So we're working on that. Stay tuned.
Yeah,
and
something about, do you know, I think it's something about like wrist-based authentication instead of just regular authentication.
There are ways to minimize the impact of that and make it a better user experience. But at the same time, we're very careful about not affecting your security and identity. So.
Of course. How about that? You have any insight into that either?
Clearly, I'm the one who's supposed to have insight into everything.
Just focus on the Merchant Center, man. All right.
Okay.
I guess don't have any more questions.
We don't have any more questions for this week.
Yeah.
And we're out of time, so we'll see you
Well,
at our next session.
in 2 weeks, we have a great session for you. We're inviting the product manager for Google Wallet. So if you have any wallet-related questions, when we put up the next session, ask them in the moderator. Cool. And with that,
That-
I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Bye.
See ya.